Davis, Deputy Head of the Regional Internal Audit Service. Again, this is a report that committee are familiar with. The purpose of this report is to provide members of the committee with a position statement on the internal audit recommendations made, implemented and outstanding. And this report was done just before Easter, so to the 28th of March. And Appendix A provides the detail on the high and medium risks. As you are aware now, recommendations are made at the conclusion of an audit review if it is felt that the improvement should be made to mitigate risk and strengthen controls. The implementation of these are monitored to ensure the risks have been addressed. Table 2 in the report summarises the recommendation status in respect of the completed audits undertaken during this financial year. It is illustrated that a total of 87 recommendations have been made of high and medium risk, of which 48 have been implemented, 37 have a future target date, and 2 high-risk recommendations are overdue. These relate to the security and access to council buildings and parking enforcement, and the details are at Appendix B. In respect of audits completed prior to this financial year, a further 2 medium recommendations are overdue, and this relates to Tinnereal School and vehicle fuel management. And again, they are detailed for yourselves in Appendix B. There are also recommendations made prior to this financial year that still have a future planned implementation date. Appendix C provides details of these, which relate to cybersecurity and home to work mileage in council vehicles. All overdue recommendations have been highlighted to chief officers in the council to make them aware of the outstanding risks and actions. And the monitoring of the recommendations is undertaken regularly by auditors, and any undue delays or issues are highlighted to senior management via our escalation process and ultimately to this committee. I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that, Joan. Members, any questions? Andrew?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Thanks, Joan, for that. Just a quick question on the fuel cards, because I did note that's been delayed. It's quite delayed. It's about 6 months plus now, I think. But there's no reason as to why that has been delayed. Just wondering if you can provide any further details on that, please.
The fuel management recommendation, they did agree it, yes. Implementation was delayed. I think it was long-term sickness or the relevant officer wasn't available. So the latest information is that he's now back and he is working on them. So yeah, we are in the process. We are in dialogue with that individual.
Okay, thanks, Joan. So I mean, fuel cards are one of those things that are generally open to abuse. So I think that's quite important.
Yes.
We follow that one up. And my last question was, in your paper, in paragraph 3.5, you talk about 7 recommendations, still have future implementation dates. Those are detailed in Annex C. But when I did look at Annex C, and in particular the home to work mileage, they've got agreed dates of September, but then you've got revised dates 6 months later. So to me, it's not strictly future. They seem to be also overdue. Is that correct?
They're overdue as in the original agreed implementation date, but the officers concerned and the service come back to us, and there's various reasons why they can't implement it for the agreed original date. So as long as there's valid reasons and it's sensible, we do agree another date rather than reporting them as overdue, because there's various issues that could have arisen why they couldn't achieve it. So we do take a sensible approach. We have that dialogue. We do make sure they're aware that the risks still exist until those are put in place. In some cases, they do come up with interim measures to mitigate some of that risk. But again, we are in dialogue with those people, and we do get regular updates from them.
Thanks, Joan. I'm assuming with most of the overdue dates, there's always a reason as to why they're overdue. I'm just wondering how many times can actually give you a good reason not to mark it as overdue before you do mark it as overdue. Does that make sense? Probably didn't explain that very well, but
yeah, it's a judgment. But we do, as we've said earlier in this meeting, we do present a corporate management board with updated information, and so the risk that is there if that action is still hasn't been implemented is highlighted at the highest levels. So sometimes officers have to accept the risk because there's pressures elsewhere. So they are on the agenda, and they aren't sort of overlooked. They are kept on our radar, if you like.
Okay, and just on that last one, it talked about possible requirement to take vehicles home, business case to be presented. I think the revised date is March, so I'm assuming we'll get an update on that next committee, but it's obviously one of those ones that
it was a timing
hit
issue.
us. Yeah,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah.
So sort of typical sort of thing that ends up on the Daily Mail. Okay, great. Thanks, Joan.
Thanks, Andrew. Colin?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, it's regarding the private fund, not in terms of this specific school. We have had this discussion before, and there was some information circulated regarding the private fund. I did a little bit more research into it because at the last meeting, I think it was obvious. I was quite surprised that schools still maintain these private funds, even the school I'm a governor at. It just concerns me that, so first of all, I didn't think, and I know the guidance was issued by the Welsh Government, and to be honest with you, I didn't think it was that satisfactory, but it does concern me that every school has this so-called private fund. They're all run in different ways. There doesn't seem to be much governance or regulation attached to them. I know the local authority can say it's up to the school, it's not up to us to manage or regulate, but it just leaves me with a lot of concern around every school running what is effectively, some people have called it a slush fund, which is a bit unfair, but it's a fund which doesn't seem to be managed or regulated in any way, in a consistent way. And as was obvious from the guidance from the Welsh Government and from the local authority, it is a case of it's up to the school, let them get on with it, but it just doesn't sit easily with me. So I just wondered if Audit, is there anything more you want to say about this issue? Because as I say, I feel as a governor and also as a member of this committee, a little bit uncomfortable with this particular issue. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Colin.
If I could answer that, Chair, there is Bragenda's provide guidance to all schools as far as a private fund is concerned. It outlines in there what should and shouldn't be spent from there. It gives them templates in order to monitor it, and it also asks and requests that the fund is independently audited, and those audit certificates are sent into the council. So that's the guidance that we use when we go out and audit the school. It is fair to say that some schools are better than others, and I think COVID had an impact on the private funds. So it is definitely something that we do pick up in any school we visit. In addition, that we send out an annual questionnaire to all schools that we don't visit during that year, and we ask them pertinent questions and highlight in there what controls we would expect, and if they weren't in place, what risks. We challenge schools if there's expenditure on the fund that's not for the benefit of children, because that is what the fund is for. We do get some pushback from schools that they don't necessarily agree with that, but we always highlight that, and then that's for the school and the chair of governors to take on board. Does that answer some of the questions?
Yeah, it does. It makes me feel a bit better because I don't think I've seen that. Apologies if it's been sent out and I've seen it, but I looked at a different document that was sent out. So is there any chance you could resend that document just to reassure me? But I am reassured, Joan, by what you said. So thank you for that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Colin. I was just wondering if it is an issue still, is whether we are scrutiny to look at it, look at private funds. I don't know what people's view would be on that, but maybe there is something that scrutiny could look at.
Chair,
I think it's a positive way forward, Chair.
Yeah. All right. Sorry, Andrew, did you want to come in?
Yeah, this is quite a difficult one to kind of capture, really, because it does depend on the fair funding arrangement that the authority has. I know some of my colleagues across Wales don't have access to school funds, as in auditing them, because it's not included within their fair funding agreement. Luckily at Bridgend we do have access, so that should give you some assurance that we are looking at some of the transactions that go through, and it depends on the school. Some are very good at fundraising, and there's a lot of money going through that particular account. Some have very ambitious school trips, and that money goes through the account. It's all to do with non-budgeted income and expenditure, which is primarily for the benefit of the children at the school. Some schools have PTAs and they do fundraising that is external to the school, and we don't have access to that at all. And I know some issues have come up in the past where that the governance hasn't been as good as people would have expected. But just to give you some assurance, I guess, is that within Regen we do look at school funds when we do look at the schools, and we do look at the transactions.
Thanks.
Chair, if I could come back in as well. So thank you for that, Andrew. Again, with Joan's reassurance as well, I am more reassured. And the proposal from Councillor Granville about a scrutiny committee looking at it is a good thing. But when you think about it, going back to the school we discussed earlier on, St Mary's, it's not just the local authority, it's not just the school. I suppose it's the diocese as well. So yeah, it makes you wonder what is actually going on with some of this funding, where there are different partners involved. And as Andrew said about the PTAs or PFAs running some schools, it can get a little bit murky. So any reassurance would be good. Thank you for that.
Thank you for that.
Chair, would you just indulge? Chair, can you just indulge me on that, because I think I can answer some of Colin's questions here. Sitting on a community council, we had a letter from a particular school within the county borough, which sits within my community, asking for a large donation of £1,700, right? Because they had to go to London. The community council granted that money, right? So that is in the coffers already. Now we've had another school asking for a big donation, Colin. So you're quite right. We as a community council are giving big donations to schools. So there are pockets of money there, but they do use them, Colin. Sorry, Chair. I just thought I'd want to highlight that.
Okay, thank you. Biotin.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Maybe this question is for Caris. On some of the delayed implementation, or at least particularly one where it was mentioned that the officer that was meant to attend to it was here for 6 months. That brings me to business or resilience, actually, right? So are we addressing key man risk or succession planning, or whatever they want to call it, in terms of resilience, where a staff is not, for whatever reason, whether it's ill health or for something is not around, and then the expectations to deliver then gets stalled or gets undone? Thank you.
Thanks, Biotin. Caris, did you pick that up?
Yeah, so this is about short-term appointments, is it? And what happens to that work when that appointment comes to an end? Was that your question, Biden?
No. So there was something on fuel where the officer was away ill for a while.
All right.
And the audit item could not be closed or could not be attended to. So I was just asking about business resilience or resilience or succession planning or key man risk and all of that. Arrangement we have for that in the also.
No, thank you for clarifying that for me. I mean, we do try and do succession planning across the authority, but I think a number of services currently are showing capacity issues. And some of that is just that actually as a council we do struggle sometimes to recruit into some of our vacant posts. And that is an issue, a particular issue in some areas of the council at the moment. And to be honest, also we slowed down our recruitment processes in the last 6 months of the last financial year. So that will have impacted on some services. But what we do is try to reprioritise all of the time. So if there is a gap somewhere in a service, the managers will reprioritise to make sure that the high level, highly important or highly risk ones are covered where we can do it. But it does mean that we can have gaps. But we do try and succession plan where we can. So we do know our staff, we do know where we're likely to have gaps in services in the future and try to plan on that basis.
Thanks, Gareth. Richard.
Thank you, Chair. Just very briefly, parking strategy for the authority. I see the dates here, 2014 and 2017, and then there's a date then agreed, the 31st of the 1st, 24. Why is that gone over that date, and why haven't we had a report back? You know, I mean, is it because we have a lack of officers in that particular department? Because this is an important strategy, really, right, for us and as the towns, to make sure we got free parking and everything else in place. So I'm just bemused, your Chair, that we haven't had that in front of us.
Joan?
We've chased this recommendation and a response to this recommendation, but we're still awaiting a reply from the service, the relevant service.
Well, thank you, Joan, for that reply. Can I suggest, Chair, that we put a date here? Because otherwise this could be a running strategy and it could be coming into us next year. So yeah. I would suggest we give them at least a month, and I would say that they've got a month to do it, Joan. And if they don't, they have to have a genuine reason why they don't come back to you in a month. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Richard. Carys?
Sorry, Chair, I was just going to say, I think that's an area where they've had absence due to ill health in that team now. But I will certainly pick that up, and I'm sure Joan can pick that up through her channels as well, to see whether what's been done. That individual may well now be back, but I'll check that for you, Councillor Granville.
Thanks, Carys. Councillor Hughes.
Yes, I was going to add, Chair, I understand that the team has recently suffered a bereavement, and we just need to be aware of that and understanding of the situation and how it would have affected them as well. So perhaps we can extend our best wishes to the team involved and just give some understanding to it. On the other key recommendation, the security and access to buildings, that's a couple of months beyond the agreed date. I think it would be useful to the committee if we had some more narrative and explanation about why this has taken more time than we hoped.
Yeah, I think the view I've got, Martin, if it would assist, that I was going to suggest a recommendation that, say for cyber, because obviously Carys was dealing with that and we picked that up in the last meeting, all the others be asked to provide a written update as to where they're at in regards to delivering the outstanding actions. Because again, some of these have been outstanding 6 months, 9 months, etc. And there's very little narrative on some. And I know Joan says they chase them up through the normal channels, through the head of service, etc. But I think if on this occasion, everything apart from cyber, we ask the head of service or the director or whoever to provide us with a full written update as to where they are in regards to the action. So, and, if it's not being concluded, a date as to when it would be concluded, so that we've got, full sight of it. I would pick up Andrew's point, in regards to home to work mileage, taking cars at home or vehicles home, and that, the public perception out there could be people riding around in the council vehicle on a weekend, for their shopping or wherever. And I think, there does need to be, some checks and balances there. So the recommendation I was going to say is we note the report, but more a second recommendation that we ask for each of the references in Appendix B and C, apart from cyber, that they provide a full written update as to where they're at and when they're actually going to complete their action plan. And the final one is that we refer the issues about private funds to scrutiny, should they wish to look at it. So at least we then cover all bases. I don't know what people's view is on that. Okay, so are there any other comments, questions or comments? No, so the recommendations are then that firstly, we note the contents of the report. Secondly, that the heads or the directors of the heads of service in regards to all those matters set out in Appendix B or C, save for cyber, provide a written update to the next Governance and Audit Committee, indicating where they are in their action plan and when the matter will be actually concluded, if it's not concluded by that date. And recommendation 3 is that the issue about private funds in regards to schools be referred to scrutiny committee for them to have a look at those funding arrangements and the use of funding, etc. People are happy with that? Someone prepared to move?
Yes, I move.
Thank you, Martin. Seconder? Thank you, Councillor Granville. Anyone against? Nope. Thank you very much. And then on to item 9 now, which is the ICT department processes and procedures.
Thank you, Chair.
Thanks.
Just quickly take you through the report. The purpose of the report is to inform Governance Audit Committee of how the ICT department's process and procedures are maintained to ensure an efficient operating model and minimises disruption to the Council. The report highlights the key aims of protecting the network, data, services and that the Council delivers, and covers all aspects such as cyber security, from secure design of systems and services through to the access management and handling incidents. In terms of Section 2, the background covers the dependency on ICT, inclusive of the change of working patterns that we discussed earlier around hybrid working and our disaster recovery model that works in partnership with another local authority. Section 2.2 highlights some of the key outages we've had over the last 10 years. I want to add this not cyber related, but they're the key outages we've had. With regards to current situation in Section 3.1 overviews the subscription to the National Cyber Security Early Warning System. 3.2 outlines the Council's firewalls, which are our perimeter defence, and they block on average 2,500 external attacks every day and around about 450 phishing emails, where phishing is deemed as the biggest risk in terms of the Council. 3.3 is the PSN Code of Connection certification compliance by demonstrating our infrastructure is sufficiently secure and would not present an unacceptable risk to the security of the network when we're connected. 3.4 outlines the change management process and how that interlinks with our patch management on 3.5 in terms of our procedures and processes. 3.6 outlines the investment we've had in the data centre and the benefits of moving to the private cloud offer with regards to resilience, redundancy and the security around that offer. This work was actually completed this weekend and the team worked all weekend. So I'd just like to say, put on record, if you don't mind, Chair, special thanks to Darren Lloyd and the team that made it a relatively smooth process. It's been a significant piece of work in terms of the transition from Civic to the data center in the cloud. 3.7 outlines the authority's approach by distributing the functions of the Chief Information Security Officer, CISO, because of a lack of ability to recruit at that level. And 3.8 outlines the enhanced e-learning. So this is a process where we'll be more proactive and interactive regards phishing exercises with the Council. So it takes e-learning to another level. Obviously 4, 5, 6 and 7 cover the equalities well-being, with 6 being climate change. The consolidation of the data centres benefiting the green agenda, which is very positive. There's no safeguarding and corporate parent implications, but 8 outlines the financial position of the investment that Cara spoke about earlier, 1.26 million that was invested or outlined in the capital programme approved by Council, which will be fully spent following the completion of the last areas of the data centre transition. I'd just like to, if possible, with reference to the comments previously made by Councillor Williams and Simon Graves, they're not taken as a criticism at all. I actually welcome it. It helps us with the focus and direction. I want to personally deliver the best solution for the authority that covers both members and officers. So if you don't mind, Chair, I'd like to take the recommendations to note the report.
Thank you, Martin. Any questions from members? Councillor Davis?
Thanks, Chair. Referring back to some of our earlier discussions, to be fair, this report does look like, and it does give us reassurance, it does look like Council are doing its best to link in with, good practice elsewhere, lots of checks and balances, thank God, regarding this like basic issue. So in particular, paragraph 3.3.1 around the public services network and a code of connection and the need for the chief exec to sign that at a high level. It makes me very reassured, particularly with, audit being internal to the checks and balances. And I presume kind of a good basis for the work Harris alluded to earlier on about our next strategy. So I feel quite reassured now. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that, Councillor Davis. Councillor Martin Williams.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I echo a lot of that, and yeah, fully support it. I mean, what I'm picking up here is 3.7.1, and it's about the chief, the CIO or the CISO, being unable to recruit because those roles, the market price effectively for those roles is beyond the pay scales of the council. That's going to become increasingly an issue, I imagine, and I think, I feel that presents a risk to us. Now, I'm not naturally one to, and the public always go on about people being paid more than the Prime Minister and this sort of thing, but equally, you have to pay to get the right person. And what are we doing? It's all very well spreading the load, but it goes back to what I said earlier about making, do and mending. What are we doing as an authority to look at these roles that we simply can't accommodate within our existing structure, and are we looking to share roles more widely or with other authorities, or are we perhaps looking at being radical and a transformation plan that allows us to pay those extra roles for those key roles if necessary?
Thanks for that, Councillor Williams. Martin or Karis, you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Williams. It's a real difficult position we're in. A sister authority went out specifically for a CISO role and had no applicants, and it was quite a considerable market supplement in that role itself. So I think this is where we're going to have to be more collaborative in terms of our engagement with other authorities. We've mitigated where possible in terms of the role itself across some of the key personnel within ICT. So there's not a single point of failure. I'd like to stress from that element. So we've taken elements of the CISO and spread it across three officers. But it's just challenging. It's the private sector requirement around ICT skill sets, whether that's storage, networking, or security, is really, really buoyant, and it's something we need to look at with Karis, how we're going to address this, because it's nice to have. I absolutely would endorse and encourage if we could have that role, but we are where we are. But I think that collaborative approach with other authorities is the only way forward in terms of delivering that. But subscribing to those agencies, etc. So the early warnings and from a cyber perspective, there's WARP group as well that we subscribe to. So it's about sharing that knowledge, etc. But I think what the report I'm trying to outline is our nuts and bolts operational activity is keeping us as safe as we possibly can within that context. So hopefully that goes some way to answer, but it's very, very challenging in terms of that private sector sort of salary bracket and recruit within the authority.
Thank you for that, Martin. Bayodin?
All right. Thank you very much, Chair. Yeah, very reassuring report. But I just wanted to understand what exactly the report is meant to achieve, right? Because it talked to process and procedures, right? So is it just for us to note it? Is it an assurance report? What exactly it is? And in terms of process, if it's actually a process or procedural document, I'm not able to see what exactly the procedures are from the document, right? If it's meant to give us assurance, I think it should show some metrics as well in terms of how we are trending or what exactly we're doing, so that we can have assurance on what's being done. But I think beside that, it gives assurance like what else I've mentioned. Thank you.
Thanks, Biden. Martin?
Thanks, Biden, in terms of the question. I think it's about seeking assurance in terms of how we operate. We've had some challenging reviews around audit from a cyber perspective, and I wanted to outline what we're doing from an operational perspective with the linkages back to the COCO PSN. I think that is the de facto position statement for us in terms of delivering a safe, reliable network infrastructure that can mitigate cyber occurrences. To outline that in terms of our patch manager, the ITIL process in terms of change management, how we do to minimise that risk when patches is one of the key criteria. Having in terms of intrusions within the network and outside the network, that's a key factor. So I wanted to demonstrate by Audit in terms of what we're doing on a daily, monthly, quarterly basis in terms of supporting us, but also about taking cyber as a sort of uplifted risk the organisation is on the management risk register. We're going to be reporting now on a quarterly basis going forward, following the successful attainment of the COCO PSN, utilising metrics and measures. So CMB is cited on that as well to bring cyber as an element. But in terms of as a deterrent, we've got to have these operational aspects in place in terms of those processes to minimise and mitigate a potential attack, which will fundamentally come from potential patch releases, etc., where officers could make mistakes, and that's where the element about cyber training and making it more interactive and we can capture. So once we deploy the e-training module, we'll be able to determine who's clicked on a link, etc., and we can add training so we can come back with some statistics. But generally, in terms of patch management, can provide that, and firewall intrusions and what we intend to do is deliver that to CMB, our corporate management board, to raise that level in terms of that risk. So I hope that assures you, Biden.
Yeah, thank you very much. So looking forward to the next report that will show metrics and thresholds so that we can actually have assurance. Thank you.
There's no one else showing any questions, any comments, anyone? No, there's no comments. The report then is to the recommendation, note the contents of the report. Someone prepared to move, please?
Move.
Thank you, Richard. Seconder, please.
Seconded.
Thank you, Martin. Anyone against? No, thank you very much. Thank you, Martin, for that report. Greatly appreciated. If you want to leave, you can.
Thank you, Chair.
That's okay. Next report is the self-assessment approach for 23-24, and I should imagine it's Alex.
It is. Are you happy with me giving a brief intro?
Yeah, just a brief intro, that'd be great.
Fab. So the paper outlines a modified process for self-assessment for this year. We've kept as much the same as possible, where on reflection we think things have worked. So everything around particularly use of resources and governance stays the same as the last 2 years. In terms of performance, we need to make changes for a few reasons. Firstly, because we've got a new corporate plan with new wellbeing objectives, aims, commitments and PIs. Secondly, because learning from last year and the year before, we want to be more objective and systematic with our judgments. And finally, we have new performance reporting methods that we think are working well, and we want to roll them out in the self-assessment. So you can see from the paper that we're proposing 2 main changes. Firstly, we want to include charts and performance summaries that we're using, we think, quite successfully with members in the self-assessment. And secondly, we want to bring in a more objective method of making our judgments. And we propose a methodology for doing so. You can also see that we've tested this using Q3 data, and it seems to us to make sense. Keen to take GAC's view on these proposals. Just then, the paper also asked some questions about consultation and engagement. Over the past 2 iterations of self-assessment, we've tried 2 quite different approaches. The first year we did tailored engagement with existing fora and got some quite helpful feedback and changes, but we can't really say that we formally consulted. Last year we did a formal consultation, but got limited useful feedback. The responses were really negative, but not actually about the judgments or information in the report, and over half of respondents did so without reading the document. So we've sought advice from WLGA, who say there has been some confusion over interpretation of the Welsh Government statutory guidance. The general view across authorities in Wales is that there's little value in doing a standalone consultation, and other authorities are more in favour of building on existing opportunities to engage throughout the year to feed service user perspectives into the conclusions of our self-assessment report. WLGA also state that their work with Data Cymru on the National Resident Survey should help us with self-assessment and be comparable across Wales. And they're also doing some work with their HR network to develop a national staff survey. So again, the views of Governance and Audit Committee on engagement and consultation specifically would be really welcome.
Thank you, Alex. Obviously, people have read the report. Any questions? No questions? No. Oh, Colin.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Thanks, Alex. I do feel sometimes, it's more comment than a question. I do feel sorry for Alex and the team sometimes, because you can go to one meeting and say, as she did yesterday, there's too many indicators. And then another one will say there's not enough indicators, or there's not enough detail. And I sense that you know, as members, sometimes we're guilty of moving the goalposts, and it's difficult for staff to keep up. Now, to be fair, this is a fairly new process for this council, and I get a sense that it hasn't really, the culture and the process hasn't really had a chance to bed in yet. So what I would like to see is a period of stability. We stick to a certain format, even over a couple of years, and then we start to assess it in a more kind of objective and fair-minded way. Because, as I say, you know, I've sat through meetings recently whereby some people want this, some people want that, and so it is really difficult, and there's a lot of detail here, as I said to you in an email yesterday, Gareth, and I don't want to speak on behalf of Alex and the team, but a little bit of patience about how this process kind of unfurls, if you like. So I just wanted to make that point. Thanks.
No, that's okay. Thanks, Colin. Anyone else? I think the only comment I'd make, Alex, in regards to the resident survey, I think if it's going to be made available, then we need to take it up. Clearly, you know, surveying communities, they get survey overload on occasions. And actually, I think the quality of the responses on occasion are not robust enough. You'll get those who wish to complain constantly to fill in the pro formas, and those who are quite happy with their lot have no say whatsoever, and actually that skews the information that can come forward. So I think if it's going to be done on a national basis and there will be a consistent format throughout Wales, then in reality, why not use it? Because I assume the professionals in the data unit or in WLGA will be sense testing the questions to make sure they're relevant to what's being put out to the public. And, you know, hopefully the responses that will come back will be, you know, as I say, they will be across Wales. So I would hope that there's no, there's no discontinuance of anything that the council does, and it'll be completely out of kilter. So that would be my view. I don't know whether other members would be of the same view that we should use the trend data, etc., that come in from all Wales. I think I tend to agree with Colin. A lot of things need to bed in first. But what you tend to find sometimes with Welsh Government, they'll bring it in 1 year, and within 3 years, it's all changed again. So you're measuring something completely different. And, you know, you actually get, you know, it does need to be grounded. And, you know, and I think it's the discussion we had previously in regards to, you know, how does the council perform? You know, a lot of your complaints will look at that. And, you know, if you've actually addressed the issue via putting changes into service delivery or wherever, then I think, you know, that evidence is there already, because at least you're dealing with the complainants and you're actually acting upon what is being said by the population. So I think that's very important. Save for that, you know, I think the recommendations are fairly straightforward in reality. I think we accept, you know, I know what you say we consider, but I think we accept the way forward in regards to the four bullet points there. and certainly in regards to the ongoing consultation, we use the national framework if we can to get the feedback from Bridgend residents. I don't know what any other members' views are on that or comments on that are, but I think that would be my proposal in moving this forward. And if that satisfies your recommendation, then so be it. Okay, well, there's no one else. So the recommendation is that we accept the proposed way forward for the self-assessment 23-24. We accept the self-assessment structure set out in Appendix A. We accept the proposed methodology for scoring aims set out in Appendix 2. And I think we accept the option in regards to the national survey for ongoing public consultation and engagement outlined in paragraphs 3.9 and 3.10. So I'm prepared to move, please.
Move.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder?
Seconded.
Thank you. Anyone against? Nope. Thank you for that. Thank you for that, Alex. You know, and all the time and your effort that your team put in. Hopefully it doesn't change again shortly. Agenda item number 11, which is the lessons learned, which is a document we've asked from Nigel following the audit last year. Nigel's done the paper, so it's a matter of fact in which he's reporting to committee. So over to you, Nigel.
Yes, thank you, Chair. The reporting, Nigel Smith, Group Manager, Chief Accountant. Yeah, this is to provide the Audit Committee with some reassurance about the processes that we have in place, sort of pre-accounts preparation, but also post-audit completion of the accounts. The committee will recall that in January, they approved the Statement of Accounts for 22-23 and reported at that meeting were a number of amendments that we needed to undertake, and these are covered in paragraph 2.2 of the report. And so as part of the follow-up then, following that audit, we do undertake a number of processes to ensure that the accounts are as accurate as they can be. Paragraph 3.2 sets out some of those key processes that we undertake, including a closing pack detailing key tasks and staff and timetables, automation of the process as much as possible to minimise any potential errors, and review of the accounts. One change that will happen this year is working with our colleagues in Audit Wales. There's a new data exchange package that we are using, and we have started that process already, which will also help us to monitor progress of the audit and any audit queries that we get. So that should further improve that process. That really probably was all I was going to draw attention to, Chair, and just that this hopefully gives the committee some reassurance of the full cycle of the Statement of Accounts process.
Yeah, thank you for that, Nigel. And obviously, as you've said, these will be taken into account now in the closing of last year's accounts, which we'll be working on now. So, so yeah, thank you very much for preparing this report. I don't know whether there are any questions. No questions. Any comments? Oh, Colin.
Yeah, sorry for the late down again.
That's okay.
Just regarding, bear with me, it's paragraph 3.4, Nigel, the workshop. Just a bit of feedback. How did it go? How did staff react to it? Positively, I hope. As you said, it's a new way of working, but I would imagine a better way of working in that as long as you're objective and it's not personalised, then you know all the issues can be talked about and worked out, and an improvement plan as a result of that. So yeah, just a bit of feedback really about our workshop. Thanks.
Yeah, we do an annual workshop, sort of just in advance of starting the closing of the next year's accounts, if you like. We involve a wide range of finance staff who are all involved in closing the accounts. It's an open session, although I kind of do a presentation, raise some of the key issues, but also feedback the positives in terms of the positive reports that we get from Audit Wales. We do then give the opportunity for all staff to offer any suggestions for improving the process. We take those on board and we try and implement them. I think staff were comfortable with the process. There were no major issues that they raised at this workshop. But throughout the process, if anyone's got any suggestions, we'll take them on board and see what we can implement to try and ultimately make the task a bit more straightforward and easier for them, to be honest with you, and to make it easier for doing the wider accounts.
Thanks for that, Nigel. No one else. Oh, Richard Granville?
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question to Nigel on that situation which Colin's just raised. Do we put a little box, Nigel, in there so members can do it privately, where they could perhaps see there's something that's not perhaps working right, where they could perhaps say, if you do X, Y, and Z, it'll work better? Do you give your members the opportunity to do that?
When you say members, do you mean the finance team?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Probably not a private box. I mean, I'd say it's an open forum, but appreciate that sometimes, staff may want to just send a message privately, which they can do. I'm happy to take an email direct or have a discussion on a one-to-one basis. So we will consider those, if there's any comments to be taken on board.
Because, Chair, coming back on that, you can sometimes, members, that have been there a long time can perhaps see something that they can make a bit better. And, if you can utilize that to make it quicker and more efficient, you should do that, I think. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's all I'm just raising, Chair.
No, thank you for that, Richard. Yeah. No one else has shown, no comments. See the recommendation on the report that we note the report again. Someone prepared to move, please?
I'll formally move. I'll second then. I'll give way to my colleague.
Thank you very much. Anyone against? Nope. Item 12 on the agenda is the forward work programme. Deb?
Yes, thank you, Chair. For the recording, I'm Deborah Exton, Deputy Head of Finance. As you're aware, this is a standing agenda item, the purpose of which is to provide committee with details of the updated forward work programme for 2024-25 and to give committee the opportunity to make sure that all the areas that they want to be considered and the officers who they want to be brought to committee are included in that forward work programme. The table in paragraph 3.2 sets out the reports that are coming at the moment, proposed to be brought to the next meeting on 6th of June. And a full forward work programme for the rest of the year is included in Appendix A. So this is just basically to ask committee if there are any other reports or agenda items that they wish to be considered either at the next meeting or in future meetings. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Councillor Martin Williams.
Thank you, Chair. This is something that's been bubbling away for a little while and it's come to a head this morning, and I'll give you an example because it's come through our children actually, and it's the council's Pay It service, and in particular the Pay It service and how that translates into the payment of school meals. Now, for a little while, we've found we'll update our children's account because they've all got a digital account, and they go to school only to be told, "Oh, you haven't got money in your account," which is both humiliating because their friends think they're skint, and of course they've been left without food. Now this has happened a few times, and it's happened again today, and it was quite timely actually. That was on this meeting when it's happened. Now I'll give you the specific example. Is so my wife, who's another borough member, made a payment on the system on the early hours of Friday morning because she woke up remembering she hadn't done it. My son went to get food today and was told, "No food for you. The system's not, that there's no money on the system," despite there being evidence of him, having £25 in his account. So my understanding is that there is a known fault somewhere between the payment system and actually it reaching where it needs to get to, or the notification to the school. Now, it just so happens it would be highly coincidental if the leader of the opposition's son was the only child in the county borough who wasn't experiencing this. So I think this needs closer looking at it. It is quite interesting actually that it concerns both education and IT. So there's definitely something not right with this system, and it's resulting in children being humiliated in front of their friends. But more importantly, I mean, it's all right for us. We can pop down and we can take a packed lunch or something. But for some children, this is the only meal they'll have in a day. So I'm very concerned about this, and I'm concerned that there hasn't really been a proper response from officers when it's been raised through the proper channels. So clearly you can tell I'm a little bit annoyed about it, but I do think it's beyond my situation, and I think there's definitely something there that needs to be looked at.
Yeah, I think the essential thing is, and I don't mean unkind, it's not a matter for us at the moment because it's not agendaed. I think the correct way to deal with this is that Caris takes it back to the Director of Education. Education Committee should look at it, and if not, the Scrutiny Committee of Education should look at it, because it is, you know, a concerning issue. If your son has got the same issues, then there may be other residents throughout the county borough who are also raising exactly the same issue. I think more important, forget about the money, a child should never be left without a meal. Now, I got no idea what the policy is of this council, but I think that's again another fundamental issue. Just because you've got no money on the account, you know, and I've got to say, my kids tend to overspend their accounts now and again and ring me up and say, "Can you top it up, Dad?" But the school will allow them a meal, and I think that's correct and possible. So might I suggest, Councillor Williams, that this matters, you know, Caris can pick it up, but I think this matter does need to be referred to the Director of Education. It does need to be referred to the Education Committee if it's a fundamental issue. Clearly, Martin was on in regards to ICT and that. I don't know whether it's an ICT issue, but it does need a corporate response in regards to this issue. You've raised it because you're experiencing it. Many others may well raise it. So I think it's a matter that needs to be raised elsewhere before it comes back to us.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, I felt it was an audit thing because it was the transfer of money from, you know, through a process. But equally, if it's scrutiny, that's fine as long as it's being picked up.
The issue,
yeah.
Obviously, all we need to be assured is there's a process by which that kids can pay their school meals and the parents can pay the school meals. That reassurance has been given to this this matter. It's never been raised before, but I think it needs to go back to the root cause in reality, get education to look at it with ICT, if it's an ICT issue or whatever. And then obviously if there is a major issue, then it should be, you know, should be picked up by that committee and that scrutiny committee. Colin.
Yeah, forgive my ignorance to start with. Can you remind us, somebody remind us in terms of what's the, I know it's governance and audit, but what's the criteria for requesting the committee consider a particular issue, and also the timetable then in terms of how much notice we need to give officers to prepare the material, the report, whatever, for us to consider. So it's 2 stages. One, what's the criteria for which report? I mean, Martin talked about an issue here, which touches on, as he said, education and IT. So that's a good example, I think. But so what's the criteria and what's the kind of lead-in time? What's the timetable for that then? Thanks, Chair.
I would imagine, Colin, someone's going to have to get back to you on that. I haven't got the terms of reference before me as to whether or not any members can actually ask matters to be called in by this committee. I should imagine there are terms of reference for all the scrutiny committees and the committees for a member to say this matter needs to be considered, because obviously our responsibility is looking at the corporate governance and the assurance processes that are in place. If there's a breach of those, then clearly it's something we should look at, because we can't be assured then that the council's got the right policies and procedures in place. Might I request, I can't answer it, it may well need the monitoring officer to give you chapter and verse in regards to, unless Caris has got it on at fingertips, but it will need the monitoring officer to give us a view on that, is my view on that issue. Caris?
I would say certainly, Chair. I can't give you an answer off the top of my head. I'm happy to go away and speak to the monitoring officer, and we'll put a note together and send it out to members.
Yeah, thank you for that. Is that okay, Colin? Okay. Any other comments or questions? No, you'll see the report. Obviously, there's just that one amendment, addition, that in regards to the internal audit strategy, audit report, that we asked the director and the chief exec to come in regards to those 2 school matters, in regards to you know, what they've been doing about it and such like. Someone prepared to move apart from that?
I'll formally move for the amendment, Chair, that you just stated. Thank
you, Richard. Can I have a seconder?
Yes, I second.
Thank you, Martin. Anyone against? No? Okay, item 13 then is any urgent items. There are no urgent items which I've been notified of. That then concludes the meeting. Can I just say thank you to everyone again for their contributions today. I know we've gone on about nearly 2 3/4 hours. And Colin, it is an issue I've spoken to the director about, so they're going to consider it moving forward, because again, whether or not some of these reports need a little bit more time for a discussion and debate, then obviously they will look at that moving forward. As I said, thank you very much, everyone, and see you in the next committee meeting, if not before. Take care.
Thanks all.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Gareth. Good
See you all.